Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. My name's Justin, and I play guitar on songs in Nashville. Now, that little song video that I just played there that you watched, I used both of those guitars through the same amp, and I tried to put some captions and kind of tell you what was going on through the video. This illustrates a point I was making in my last video about the black hole of tone that so many people just sort of, you just gravitate toward. You dial every guitar in, or you rely so much on stacked overdrives to get this like smooth mid-range thing, and then all your guitars kind of sound the same. A lot of you pointed out that Billy Gibbons takes that to the nth degree and makes every single guitar sound like pearly gates through this EQ system that he uses. That's cool. I mean, at that point, for me, I want every guitar to sound as distinct from others as possible. That's because of my job. I'm a little bit different than most of y'all's context, right? But man, having 12 guitars that you make sure that the tone coming out of the speaker is as close to all the others as possible, like, that's crazy. I guess there's an argument to be made that you just want something that feels a little different but sounds exactly the same, or still has your tone. I get that. I also get the comparison to like Reba McEntire, where you're just changing costumes, and that's fine too. Like whatever you want to do. This is my perspective. So in that video, I mentioned how I set my amps, and there's another YouTuber who made a video in response to this who was talking about some of the things that he really liked that I said in the video. John Nathan Cordy, I believe is his name, and yeah, thanks for the shout. That was cool. So what I mentioned was when I'm using multiple guitars through one amp, which is kind of what I do every day, I generally start somewhere in my rack, and I'll stay there until I'm like, I should really change. Most of the time it's the Bassman. Sometimes it's my Morgan Tweed. I take my studio, my JTM Studio, that 20-watt Marshall. I'll take that sometimes. When I don't have cartage, I'm kind of stuck even more, because if I'm bringing my own amp, it's going to be in an ISO booth somewhere else in the studio. Like, it's either right off the main tracking room or through a hallway and back in some other room. And they're going to get it as far away from drum mics and acoustic mics and the vocal mic as possible. So if I take my deluxe reverb or my Lazy J or whatever, I kind of have to find a setting that's going to work for everything. So my rule of thumb is I want to set the amp so that my darkest guitars speak. And what I mean is they don't sound woolly or inarticulate. There's enough top ends to where everything speaks, right? Well, the danger with that, if you're playing a 335 or a Novo, which my Novo's pretty thick sounding. Those P90s are super hot. They push the front end of the amp. You get a bit extra mid-range and just dirt with them. If I have an overdrive pedal on and I go to the neck pickup, like, it can be really thick sounding, Even the bridge pickup is thick on that guitar. Well, the danger in going from that on an amp that I set for that guitar to like my 55 Tele or, my Jeff Sen Strat or something, is that it's going to sound really bright. Really bright, because we EQ'd the amp for the darker guitar. Well, I get around that. I don't use EQ pedals, and that's because I want all my guitars to sound distinct. I want it to sound like a Tele. I want the brightness. I want the jangle. I want the snap and everything of the low strings. But I find that really subtle changes help a lot. So what I'll do is just dial the tone back. And in that performance that you saw at the beginning of this video, the only difference between pass 1 and pass 2 on the Novo and the Tele was that I had the Tele's tone knob down, right? And this is Same thing, amp reverb, all of my pedals are off. There's a tone knob all the way up. Now that sounds, oh man, like I get that it's subtle, but that sounds so much better to me. And so, you know, the other half of this equation is brighter guitar, lower output pickups. We EQ'd the amp for a darker guitar with higher output pickups. So what do you do when you feel like your volume dropped a little bit? Well, for me, I used, I think I used it for years, and then I got rid of it after I got off the road. And I've come back to it. I just use an RC booster with everything at noon. No EQ. I don't want to tweak the highs or the lows or anything like that. I just want to use a clean volume boost to make it, it's very first in my chain, and I want to just bring the pickup output of the lower output brighter guitar up to what the other one is. So don't use any EQ pedals. I don't change settings on the amp. If I feel like I'm not hitting the front end of the amp in a way that allows the amp to respond the way I want, or that makes me feel like I've gone away in the mix, I'll just turn on the RC booster. So I've got mine here, and all knobs at noon. That's probably even a little hotter than the Novo. Yeah, that's got more gain for sure. So if it's really about just matching those levels, because I hear the front end of the amp breaking up, I hear the pedal adding a little bit, you know, because my amp's on 4, which is not clean. When you get to about 3, a deluxe starts to get all that stuff around the note. I know I do this a lot with my hands anytime I'm talking about tubes working, but I'm a very visual person. So that's where it starts to break up and add all that harmonic goodness that we love. So man, I should track more with my deluxe reverb. The reverb sounds great. It just sounds, every guitar just sounds like a premium version of itself through a good deluxe, you know. And let's talk a little bit about that, because I think part of my approaching this as you guys are all sinking into this black hole of tone, not you specifically, but I just see so many live guitar players do this. When you're playing live, people in the crowd, I mean, I'm a guitar player, so obviously I'm listening for it more, but when you hear a significant amount of the room with your tone, like here I'm close mic'd, so everything's under a microscope. You hear differences between guitars ultra well. You hear any type of articulation that I'm doing or the way that I'm playing. You can easily tell if I'm using my fingertips or a pick. Like everything's really just blown up right in your face. It's like being under a microscope. Takes a little while to get used to, but I really prefer it. When I played live a lot, I just wanted my amp pointed somewhere, not directly at my head, often kind of blowing past my my knees, you know, on the floor behind me. And that would give me a sense of how the room sounded too. Like I was listening to a lot of the room. Well, when you're hearing a lot of the room and you switch between guitars and you change an EQ or something to make sure that your spot in the mix doesn't go away, it reduces even more the way those guitars sound. Like when we're sitting here, when I'm sitting, like I feel like in that last video I didn't give really good examples because I'm close mic'd, you know? But go to a show and listen for what I'm talking about. Or when you play, you know? One of my favorite things about my last road gig, it was a David Nail gig, is that we would record every show, literally every show. And we would listen to it on the bus afterward and just sort of, you know, kind of listen for the cool things that happened, because we wouldn't do the same thing every time. We would change things up. People would go for stuff, and it was really great. Well, I would, on show days where we didn't have the direct board mix feed set up, which actually sounded really good. You know, board mixes can be pretty rough because it's like everybody sounds direct and there's no real overall mix that isn't tuned for the room. It's tuned for the room and not for you to listen to a recording of the mix on different speakers, right? So those can be kind of rough sounding. But I would take a little stereo field recorder and put it right by the front of house guy, and I'd run and go grab it after we were done playing. And we'd listen to that sometimes, and I would just notice that the room just changed so much. How my guitar would sound compared to me listening in my in-ears to a microphone right on the grill. And it made me realize that playing a Les Paul with humbuckers, going to a 335, playing an SG, out front, it's like you didn't really hear the difference that much. You know, the SG would be a little brighter, has a little bit of Telecaster in it. 335 is a little bit brighter, but man, when you start stepping on overdrives, it gets real woolly. And the great thing about that gig is that I had my amp pointed forward behind me because the artist really liked hearing stage volume. That's that's a huge thing for guitar players, you know, hearing your actual amp. So many of us hate the way we sound in in-ears, on live gigs, direct mic'd with, or even through a wedge with just that real close mic thing happening. It's different than in the studio. In the studio, I feel like that sounds fantastic. Close mic'd on a gig and hearing the board mix, I was kind of like, oh, what is that? We even got to the point where we'd put a room mic for the guitar amp like 8 feet back from the amp, which was usually about where I was on stage. It would be next to my guitar boat, where my stand, you know, and would mix that in, and it would sound a little more natural to me. But I got so used to the sound of the room, and the room can really, by itself, kind of reduce the thing you're going for when you pick up a different guitar, when you pick up a Tele from a 335 or from a Les Paul or something. So that's kind of the context. I would go see a show, and you know, I'm thinking like mid-size venues to up to stadiums. Like coffee shops are going to be different, where it's super quiet and everyone's playing really quiet and it's clean, and you don't even hear much of the sound bouncing off of the room because they're being really quiet. But in a 1,500 seat theater, or a big club, a large bar that has like a 500 capacity, you know, a venue for 500 people or whatever, you'll notice that you're hearing a lot of the room. You're hearing the rig and how it interacts with the room from the stage, or sorry, from the crowd. From the stage, if you're on in-ears, you know, you'll notice the differences a lot more. But then those are kind of reduced out there anyway. So I wanted to play through this thing again and just see just see if it's different or better or feels more balanced. You know, I have the guitars panned hard left and hard right on the video that we played in the beginning, and this guitar is super bright. No RC booster. Back on. Sounds great. So I'm going to start this song, and we'll play with the old RC booster on, doing the same thing. Cool. So I like the volume level. I like the fact that there's now a similar amount of grit on both sides. If you noticed, what I tend to do on this guitar, because this neck pickup is so dark, I will never play with the tone rolled back on the neck pickup. Not in the kind of mix, a mix like that, right? Or on a session where there's that much going on, plus even more. There's keys, there's potentially steel, there's vocal. I want all the top end I can get out of this neck pickup. And check this out, with everything up, the neck pickup is very like it's, you can hear it, but you can also hear that it's not quite a Strat neck pickup. It doesn't have that throaty articulation and clarity, right? So when I went to the bridge pickup in this thing here, I left the tone knob all the way up for a little bit, and then I backed it down to about 7 or so. I just kind of go by ear. I'm not like looking to, there aren't even any knobs, or sorry, knobs. There aren't even any numbers on telly knobs like there are on a Gibson, you know. Or Tele Deluxes and Tele Customs, they've got those witch hat knobs, right? So I'm kind of just, I kind of have an idea that when I'm on the neck pickup, go to bridge, just come down about that much. And this bridge pickup is so much louder than the neck pickup too. It's pretty great. I kind of like that out of a Tele because I'm not a super classic Tele player. I like having a Tele bridge pickup that's pretty close to the strings. And, you know, with some gain and stuff, you can get that sort of bloomy, almost PAF kind of sound. Like, turn the Mostortion on with it. It's got a little bit of that to it, you know? I really dig it. So, there's a guy who has been following my channel for a really long time named Joel, and hi man, he made a comment that I thought was cool. When he gigs, he actually has the ability, I guess he stands pretty close to his amp. He just reaches back and turns the knobs. So he's using pretty close to what my settings are for a humbucker guitar, and then when he goes to a single coil guitar, he just backs the treble off and brings the bass up a little bit. That's totally cool. In a sense, if you're able to do that, then when you change the amp, it's going to respond differently to your other guitar than like mine would, because I'm leaving my amp the same. So that's great, you know. I would still, if for most of us who can't reach our amp, I think set it for the dark guitar and then use your knobs. I mean, it's so easy to overlook. Like I'm trying to think of how long I played guitar before I started leaving the knobs somewhere other than 10 at all times. It was years. I mean, years. I started playing in middle school, and I went through college. I had a band in college. I played with various bands. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that it wasn't until I got to Nashville and started playing for a living that I was like, oh, okay, so what do these actually do anyway? I started changing knobs on a Les Paul or on a Gibson where you have 2 volumes and 2 tones, and it's like there is an entire universe of sounds if you just start messing with the knobs, you know? And even on a Fender, like I almost don't like any single coils with everything up all the way. They either got to be really hot, like P90s, and even then, they clean up so nicely when you back it down. Like, check this out. I'll pick up the Novo. I'll let you guys go. So, once again, everything off. Even the bridge pickup is pretty, it's not like... So, RC booster on. I just want to play downstroke riff rock on a Novo. So lots of gain. Down to about half. That's still darker. If it's just the Mostortion, does it clean up better? What if I were in tune? Not bad, right? With the Mostortion on and the tone or the volume way down. Turn it off. I mean, that just... There's no setting on this that's like too bright and thin, you know? Somehow I don't know if it's the pine or, I don't know, it's the combination of all of it, right? It's the pine, it's the high output P90s, but even when you back them down and they don't hit the front of the amp, they're not like thinning out on you. I don't know. I think a lot of the recording myself, when I got that stereo field recorder, I would take it to every gig I did, and I'd go listen and be just the most hyper self-critical listener ever. And wow, I really liked that. That seemed really cool. What is that? I would hear things that I would play. I've always had an intention, trying to intentionally not be super muscle memory with the way that I play. And what I mean by that is I really want to not sound like I'm just stringing licks together. I want to sound like I'm telling a story with phrasing, right? So I'm going to have some like masterclass kind of stuff come out with that. I'm going to do a membership where I have so many people asking me about private lessons, and I don't do those. I just, not right now. But what I'm willing to do is a live membership where once or twice a month we all get on a stream, and there's some subject, and it's either going to be chord theory or beginning slide or phrasing or, I don't know, like pick. I'll probably poll, whoever joins that membership, I'll probably send a poll out to everybody and just say, what are you really wanting me to hear? Like, I've heard some people on comments have said that they really enjoy the talking about chords and how to play over them and how everything is chords, which I say very often. So look for that stuff in the near future. The very next thing that's going to come out is this free course on dialing in tones that I've been promoting on the channel. I'm just going to give that away. 5 different sounds, different basically pedals, and it'll be the same sort of thing where I have the board here and we go through all these sounds and what I use them for and what I think are some really important considerations when you are stepping on a tremolo. Like, think about this, think about this. Think about this with your reverb, with your delay, with your overdrive and your boost. What order are these things in? How do you stack them together to make everything work nicely? And, you know, how should that differ if you're going into a dead clean amp versus one that's kind of already breaking up a little bit like I do? So that's coming down the pipe. I also have another course with Brett. He got me started on this whole thing, and I thought it would be cool to do at least a second one with him. And, you know, my first one got a really, like, I was blown away by the responses for Tools for the Creative Guitarist. And I just think this next one is even better. We go even deeper, and it's kind of the natural next step. If you're already at the point where you kind of see everything on the fretboard. You understand where all these chords and pieces of chords are. Or if you're even just getting that under your fingers, we kind of go into pocket. We go into seventh chords, whereas in the first course, Tools for the Creative Guitarist, we focus mostly on triads. We go into some open string ideas, you know, just things to give your parts like a little more life and get you out of maybe a lane that you don't realize you've been stuck in for a while. So again, very accessible for beginning and intermediate people, but I'm really excited about that one. The section on pocket, we went deeper than I've talked about on the channel with how to really relax and lay behind the beat, and what I think the actual mechanics of your hands and what your headspace is when you are trying to do that. Because it's one of those things for so many people that the harder you try, the further away you get from it, you know. So lots of stuff coming. Thanks for hanging out, and I hope you're doing really well. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.